This is Michael, one of the board of directors of Hummingbot Foundation. So welcome to the July community call for Hummingbot Foundation and the overall Hummingbot ecosystem. So we're testing a new format this month to make it audio only using the stage channel feature in Discord. We're hoping that this makes it a bit more conversational. It's easier for everyone to join because it's audio only. You can listen in on your phone or some device. We'll go through a review of Epoch 1. The first epoch was a 6-month period where we allocated about 30 million HBOT tokens to be distributed to the community. I think we allocated close to that number. The Botcamp proposal that's currently being voted on, once that's approved, then I think we'll have allocated about 31 million HBOT tokens. But I'll also kind of discuss how governance went overall for that process. And then next, we'll kind of discuss the status of Gateway v2, which is our new DEX connector module that was released in master in the April release. And now I think it's just gone through the second iteration in the recent 1.5 release. And then third, we'll do an AMA about the upcoming Botcamp, the developer bootcamp that we're working on that's scheduled to launch in August. And of course, if anyone has questions, we'll open up to a general AMA as well. So let's get started. So overall, in Epoch 1, we allocated 30 million HBOT tokens across 3 different categories. They are liquidity distributions, dev grants, and initiative budgets. So for liquidity distributions, we allocated 15 million HBOT tokens. We had 2 approved proposals. Number 1, we distributed 5 million HBOT tokens via HBOT Miner. And then number 2, we allocated 10 million tokens to create a liquidity pool on the Avalanche blockchain on the Trader Joe platform. And we should be able to creating the pool sometime later on this week. So the miner platform is still distributing HBOT rewards, 11 million tokens that were the result of unclaimed tokens from the initial airdrop. And so those tokens will be going out, I think, later on, the Coin Alpha is arranging. So because a lot of those tokens will be sent on the Avalanche blockchain to users who are providing, basically running bots and providing volume on a certain Avalanche dexes. That's why we wanted to get the Trader Joe liquidity pool set up so that users who received HBOT on the Avalanche blockchain could actually do something with those tokens and sell them on a DEX. Next, we had the dev grant budget. We allocated 10 million tokens. We had 3 proposals approved. Number 1 was the creation of Hummingbot client strategies, of which I think we had 1 million budget for that. We've only had a few there. Then next we had a 2 million budget for adding connectors onto Solana. And number 3, we allocated 3 million basically for Gateway v2 connectors. So overall, I think even though only 6 million tokens were allocated in this category, in my view, I think this was a pretty successful initial epoch because we saw the release of one new strategy, the fixed grid strategy that just made it into the code base in the recent June release. In addition, the connector team has been hard at work. They have almost finished the Serum connector as well as the integration into the Hummingbot client. I think there's a draft pull request right now that they've submitted into the repository that we will be reviewing shortly. For the Gateway v2 connectors, I think it was also pretty successful there. From that initiative, saw pull requests for Polygon QuickSwap, Curve, Perpetual Protocol, and a number of other connectors, as well as from the Harmony blockchain. I think the Harmony One Liquidity DAO has also been working on the integrations to the Harmony blockchain, as well as the Fira and DeFi kingdoms on Harmony. So overall, this dev grant category, I think, is something that we want to expand on and really focus more HBOT tokens toward initiatives that actually reward developers for submitting new connectors, especially to DEXs, and new strategies that benefit the overall community. Thirdly, we had an initiative budget category. We allocated only 5 million tokens for this, but we actually ended up allocating almost 9 million tokens, not counting the developer bootcamp proposal that's currently pending. Some of the proposals we outlined, I'll just kind of list them. Number one, we allocated 1 million HBOT to the ETH Portland Hackathon. That resulted in, there was an arbitrage scout script that was created as a result of that. But unfortunately, none of the hackathon entries actually ended up being submitted into the code base as pull requests. I think this is in part because of lack of guidance from our part in what hackathon participants should be doing afterwards with those submissions. But I think also from a quality standpoint, I would say the submissions probably needed more work in order to make it to a true mergeable code standpoint. So I think it was a good experiment in doing hackathon, but I think doing it over again, we probably would either allocate less budget to that or try to ensure that the quality bar is higher for the winning entries. We also allocated 2.5 million for the tech review DAO. And I think this was, in my opinion, was pretty well spent because the tech review DAO has been doing a lot of work on all the pull requests that are coming into the code base. They've been reviewing pretty much every single pull request, adding comments to it, and then also working with developers to merge those pull requests in. So I think because that is one of the foundational, work items performed by Hummingbot Foundation, Tech Review DAO is something that we definitely want to expand on in the next epoch. I think we did see some issues with Tech Review DAO. We had a 5-person team that was elected, but it turned out only a few of the folks elected had time to actually perform the work required. So in the next epoch, we're looking to expand the review DAO, but also make it more flexible so that members can join and be compensated on a per review basis instead of just being elected and having that position for the entire epoch. Next, we passed a 2 million HBOT budget to integrate for external integrations with the HBOT client. This actually, in my opinion, should probably have been a developer grant budget, but we pass it as an initiative budget. That one, I think we did see a few tools. I think there's one visualization tool that made it into the code base. In addition, I think there's a trading view integration that our longtime community member, Holy as Roger, has put forth. Overall, external integrations, I think, is something we definitely want to encourage. As we're seeing, there's lots of other tools out there, that, for instance, with trading view, other trading platforms. And overall, we think that Hummingbot, as it adds things like indicators and external data feeds, it's more powerful if it can leverage external data sources. So I think this one is something that, even though the 2 million HBOT, I don't think all of it has been used. I think that it's something we want to encourage for the second epoch as well. Last three in this category, we allocated a small amount of HBOT, 225,000, to match the reward from the one Liquidity DAO liquidity campaign. So this was one of the partner DAOs set up by the Harmony blockchain to distribute tokens to people using Hummingbot to provide liquidity to Harmony-based pairs. I think this matching program is something that we wanted to do. I think that went pretty well as well. And the last two were the staging bug hunt, the community developer airdrop, which were allocated 1 million and 2 million HBOT each. Overall, we didn't see a lot of users who claimed the staging bug hunt HBOT. So that's probably something we want to revisit in the second epoch as to whether that's actually truly effective in getting people to find bugs, or if we actually have to name specific bugs in order for people to fix them. And lastly, we did see a number of developers claim the developer airdrop. I think we probably had at least 15 to 20 developers claim that. So there is a good amount of the budget remaining. Another thing we want to revisit in the second epoch, because some of the feedback we got from Tech Review DAO was that developers were submitting fairly trivial pull requests in order to, kind of basically be able to basically show that they had committed to the developer branch and in order to claim this airdrop. So I think that we want to make sure that we have the right incentives in place. And if we're just creating more work for Tech Review DAO reviewing trivial pull requests or documentation or things that kind of don't actually impact the user base, I'm not sure that this type of airdrop is something we want to encourage. So I think one of the proposals we had was reduce the airdrop for this from 10,000 to something like 100, which gives developers enough to submit pull request proposals. Obviously, they would need more to submit the improvement proposals, but it's something that may, if it results in less work for Tech Review DAO, that might be a good thing. So overall, I would say, I think that the initial Epoch, just as a recap, we allocated about 30 million HBOT tokens. Some of that was for liquidity distributions. And I think of the 30 million, where this was best spent was on places like the dev grants that incentivize developers to submit code that benefited everyone in the community, as well as on things like the Tech Review DAO, which compensated community members for doing work and putting in the time that helped the community get their pull requests in and expanded kind of like the number of developers who were able to contribute to the code base. So some of the things that I think we can improve on are pull request process and the improvement proposal process were still fairly opaque and also fairly cumbersome, especially when it came time to actually getting bugs fixed in the code base. I think that's definitely one issue we want to address. And the second issue that we want to address is the fact that we've had certain issues with connectors that went unfixed for a long time because there was an official maintainer for that connector. I think Bitmart was one example where the connector really didn't work for a while. We had a community developer who built that connector, and unfortunately, that individual, they didn't actually fix the connector, even though they were supposed to do so in their role as official maintainer. So what happened with the Bitmart connector was that it went unfixed for a long time. And then eventually the folks at CoinAlpha, our parent company, fixed it, resolved issues. And I believe that it was resolved in the last release. So I think it's a good example of where, on one hand, I think having an official maintainer, if it goes well, does result in kind of like work being done on the code base, and maintenance being performed. But in cases where the community maintainer doesn't act, it's a lot of overhead for the foundation to check in with that person, make sure if they are or aren't doing the work, and then to remove that mantle and give that to another developer if that person doesn't do their job. So overall, we're revisiting this concept of having dedicated maintainers for different components of the code base. We'll publish a proposal in the next few days that outlines a more flexible model around bounties, where people from community can vote and allocate bounties to specific bugs or other enhancements. And then once the bounty is created, any developer, whether it's from the community, from CoinAlpha, or really anyone, can pick up that bounty and work on it and then submit a pull request into the code base. In addition, we're also kind of rethinking the process and trying to come up with a different process for bugs versus non-bugs. So the bugs kind of are able to kind of skip the voting process and be worked on. The goal there is to allow bugs to be fixed more easily. So that's just a quick recap of Epoch 1 in terms of the HBOT distribution. Overall, I would say I think we learned a lot. The foundation, we learned a lot in terms of what works and what doesn't during Epoch 1. And I think we'll be able to make a lot of improvements in Epoch 2. One of the things I think, one last thing is, I think we'll be less focused on allocating and distributing a certain number of HBOT tokens. I think even though the price of the token is kind of trivial, good liquidity for the token, what we found was that developers in our community, they seem to be motivated less by just receiving tokens, but the ability to contribute into the code base and earn something that might represent the long-term potential of having this open source community around a single code base. It just helps traders everywhere. So I think that initially allocated 60 million HBOT target distribution for Epoch 2. However, I think we'll probably, kind of like, instead of having a fixed target, I think we'll just have certain categories, whether it's dev grants and initiative budgets, and just really try to make sure that the HBOT that we're distributing is serving a purpose, which is it's actually helping people in the community and not just giving it to people who want to claim an airdrop. So the Botcamp proposal that's currently being voted on, there's only a 2 million HBOT budget for that because we believe that a lot of the work that people want to put in is because they want to learn how to write quant trading scripts, and getting some HBOT, reward for completing the course is a small carrot. But the real reason they want to participate in the bot camp is to learn and to acquire skills that they didn't have before. So that's why I think that a lot of the initiatives that we'll be doing in the second half of the year will be less centered on just distributing HBOT and more centered around trying to add value to the community in different ways. So that's it for this first part, the Epoch 1 review. Does anyone have questions? You can put them either in the general channel or raise your hand and request to speak. I see one question from Joseph Savage. Are there any known issues with the Bittrex connector? So probably more of a general AMA question, but I'm happy to take it now. I think there might be. Bittrex is not, I would say, one of the connectors we see a lot of usage on currently. So that it's a combination of probably lack of demand from the community, but also it could be potentially issues with Bittrex. So what I would recommend, Joseph, is if you look on the open issues, I'll post a link on the general channel. But basically, you can search for Bittrex in terms of open issues in terms of code base. Basically, just add a filter Bittrex. Just looking at the open issues right now, it does seem like there are some issues with Bittrex, but so it's something that I think it looks like there are some issues with Bittrex. So overall, I think this is where we should be able to fix these issues, and I think the new kind of bounty-based model should allow users to submit, kind of vote for certain connectors to be fixed, and even assign bounties to them. So Diffit, the developer working on Solana, is on the line. So let me pass the mic to him.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I have two questions. Originally, we proposed 2 million Hummingbots to be distributed for Solana development work. And we have now in total, I think, claimed 1.1 million in Hummingbot improvement proposals. And the question would be now, is it possible to still create HIPs in the next epoch for this development grant from the last epoch, or should we have to create a new proposal for the next epoch?
That's a great question. So I don't think you have to create a new proposal because we've already allocated that HEP. I think we said originally that one of the rules was you had to kind of claim all that in one single epoch. But I would say the reality is, as we all know, development takes time. We want to do what we can to make things easy for the community. So no, I don't think you should create a new proposal, and we'll just roll that HEP over to the second epoch.
Okay. The second thing is, what about, we had, I would say, unexpected troubles when trying to integrate Solana wallets with the Hummingbot client, when integrating the new kind of interface, which is for central limit order books on Gateway. The original amount of 800,000 planned for the Serum DEX, if we think it's not enough and we had more days than we originally planned, is there any way to also propose for a certain additional payment in case we think it would be justified?
Yes, definitely, actually. So I think that would probably need to be a new governance proposal to allocate more tokens. But I think this is definitely something we should allocate. We should be flexible on because, again, it would need to be voted on by the community. In my opinion, I think kind of like developers doing work and, doing work for the code base is something that's what HBOT tokens are designed to promote. And of course, as a lot of us are developers on the call, we recognize that the initial scope of something doesn't always kind of match the reality of developing something unknown. And I think as long as you can explain what happened and what the issues are, I think that a lot of the people in the community would support that if they believe that extending Hummingbot to Solana is something that we want to. It's something that I would support if you can explain what happened.
Yeah, certainly. Okay. Yeah, we'll think about that. Thank you.
Sergey, do you want to ask a question or say something?
As I say, you have already finished QuickSwap. Are you planning to merge it?
Yes. So I believe that QuickSwap connector is under review right now. I think that is, if it gets merged into development sometime during the July period, it would probably be in the August release.
Okay, cool. And the second question, are you planning to integrate some Cosmos?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. Yes, actually, there's a team working on a connector to SIFT which is a Cosmos connector. SIFT allocated a budget to build a Hummingbot connector. So they set up a DAO called Pecunia that is currently working on it right now. We should actually check in to see how they're going, because when they first started back in May, the documentation around Gateway was pretty nascent. But in the last kind of couple months, the Gateway docs have improved a lot. So they should be able to build those Cosmos connectors a lot more easily now that we have more docs available.
Okay, cool. Could you share some contacts?
We can add you to the Telegram group that we have with SIFT. I think there's also a partners channel we have with them. I'm actually not sure what their status is. We last talked to them, I think, about a month and a half ago. Actually, Fauzi may have some more color. I think he's gonna. Fauzi's our engineering lead who focuses on Gateway. So, and he's been in contact with all the developers.
So, as I was saying, there is a group on Discord that has both the developers for SIFT and for another connector on Cosmos, and I can add him to the group to keep updated on what's happening with the Cosmos connector.
Yeah, thanks, Fauzi. We want to make this a community-based effort. So, with Gateway, the goal of Gateway is really community-owned standalone middleware that makes it easy for developers from various chains and from various DEXs and just the ecosystem generally to add their own connectors. So we recently published a lot of documentation around Gateway. So in the last release, we now have a list of all the devs and all the projects that are adding different types of connectors to Gateway, as well as improved developer docs. So one note is that Gateway is still somewhat in flux right now. It's on the master branch, but we're looking at how to improve the experience for both normal users who are just using Hummingbot and who don't need to know any technical skills, who can just use Gateway as a standalone, and as well as for developers that really want to use it however they want and actually run the server and develop on it. So because of that, you'll probably see some changes to Gateway over the next few months as we try to improve both the user experience and the developer experience. However, overall, we're really excited about Gateway because what we've seen is that there's ever since we announced it, there's been a surge of people from various blockchain projects that want to work on it. Obviously, the Solana DEX is one great example, Harmony, Cosmos, but we've also had teams from the Near ecosystem who are interested in connecting to Gateway and building connectors to Near-based AMM DEXs, as well as order book DEXs on Near. In addition, there was a team from the Algorand Foundation who said they wanted to add integration to Algorand and the DEXs on Algorand as well. So overall, I would say that the interest is definitely there. And I view our job at the foundation to help coordinate those efforts, ensure that there's sufficient documentation for both developers and users, and try to make sure that teams working on Gateway are talking to each other, trying to standardize interfaces for different exchange types and kind of creating reusable classes and modules in Gateway so people are not reinventing the wheel with every single DEX integration. In addition, one thing that we're working on now is introducing more examples of ways that people can use Gateway, not just building connectors, but actually creating strategies and scripts that leverage Gateway. One example is Coin Alpha is currently modifying, they're proposing a change to the cross-exchange market-making strategy so that users can basically hedge on a DEX instead of just on centralized exchanges. So the cross-exchange market-making strategy, after probably one or two releases, should be usable with all the DEX connectors in Gateway. In addition, Fauzi, our engineer at the foundation, is working on some examples of scripts that also leverage Gateway. So overall, we're looking to really integrate the Gateway DEX connectors into the rest of Hummingbot and really try to create strategies and scripts that allow people to trade and do whatever they want on DEX connectors. With Gateway, it's still a pretty new project, and we do see a lot of demand from from both individual users and from professional market making firms and trading firms use Gateway. So we'll be improving it a lot in the next few months, but overall, it's something that we're really excited about. Does anyone have questions about Gateway that we can answer? One question on the general channel from BCF, and the question is, will Hummingbot work with DEXs built on stacks.co? I assume depending on how many / how much liquidity is provided. I assume Stacks, is that the block stack? Is that the Stacks Foundation? The Stacks Foundation, we actually spoke with them at Consensus in Austin. I would say it probably depends on the DEX infrastructure on Stacks. Apparently there is one, they did mention 1 or 2 DEXs that people are launching on Stacks. So initially we set up a Telegram group with them. So I think we have one already. So I would say if you're interested in joining a Telegram group, we're happy to add you to it from a team working on a DEX at Stacks or at the blockchain itself. We don't currently have a kind of a contact or no one's raised their hand at Stacks to say we want to integrate this DEX into Hummingbot. Here's the docs, and please show us how to do it. But we can add you to it. So I think if you send your Telegram ID BCF to Carlito, or if someone else at the foundation, we'll get your handle added to that chat. Overall, we're basically seeing kind of demand almost from every single kind of blockchain ecosystem to integrate into Hummingbot via Gateway. So some of the conversations are starting out like Stacks, like Near. Other ones are kind of progressing nicely like Solana. But our goal is really by the end of the year to try to get as many blockchains integrated at Hummingbot so people can really start doing cross-chain market making and arbitrage. I see Abel from Coin Alpha also has something to say. So let me hand the mic over to Abel.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. This is gonna be pretty fast, but I have been hearing a lot that the way the questions are being raised is, are you from the foundation planning on? Are you going to? I just wanted to quickly remind everyone that this is an open source project, right? And it's driven by the community. So we shouldn't be in a passive position here, say, are you planning on? We should be making the changes, really. That's the only clarification I wanted to make, that we should all feel entitled to start producing the changes instead of expecting the foundation to drive everything, really.
That's a great point. Thank you, Abel. Yeah, and I think some of the changes we're going to propose to the governance system and the pull request systems should hopefully be aligned with that by giving people in the community more direction in terms of how they can propose bounties, pick up bounties, and get there and also get rewarded in HBOT for doing them. Different?
Yeah, regarding Abel's point, what I feel, especially what gave us some troubles, I think, in the last few months developing on Gateway, was that a lot of decisions which we would like to, either have made ourselves or simply given to some of the leading figures in Hummingbot ecosystem, is that some decisions are architecturally on a level which is so high that it's really difficult to have a real conversation about it, and it feels that there is much more that there are much more involved characters in this, like part of the Coin Alpha team, part of the Hummingbot team, and that I think we should somehow, or that we need somehow a platform or some way of really. I mean, okay, we have the Commonwealth forum, but it's I experienced it as difficult to talk about these complicated architectural decisions, and I'm not sure how to really solve it or how to do it better. Maybe you have ideas, Michael.
I actually do. So I'm glad you raised this point, because I think to address your first point, which is about kind of centralization. So I would say this is definitely not the goal, especially with Gateway, which is definitely the idea of Gateway is that every single chain, every single ecosystem has their own unique qualities. And so we're trying to create a piece of middleware that people can connect to, every single ecosystem. So obviously, I think bringing in input from everyone is something we want to encourage. Because Coin Alpha kind of like originally designed Gateway and overall is in the process of like handing off Hummingbot to the community, I think a lot of the architectural decisions were, to be honest, somewhat centralized in the past. I think we're trying to change that now, which is why we're trying to publish more documentation. But to your second point, I definitely agree that Commonwealth, while the integration with some of the Web3 native stuff was nice, the actual kind of features of the forum itself were lacking, especially in terms of writing about code and architectural changes, and the experience isn't a great experience. So we recently did a poll on Discord where we asked people if we should stick with Commonwealth or move to Discourse, which is kind of like the standard forum that most open source projects use. And the community actually selected Discourse by a pretty overwhelming majority. I think it was like 80% of the voters wanted us to move to Discourse. So we actually just set up a test forum yesterday, and we're in the process of moving over some of the posts from Commonwealth over to Discourse. But I do think Discourse will be the main kind of a community forum that we'll use going forward. And we're hoping that forum is a place where we can, publish more documentation and our thoughts around architecturally where certain aspects of Hummingbot are headed, but also encourage more discussion from the community to get their voices heard in terms of like how those architectural changes should be made. So that's some of the things and I think we'll probably launch the Discourse forum in about a week.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any leftover, I would say, maybe design artifacts that are still finding their way into the documentation pages, or is it most of the stuff that you also internally used when devising the architecture of Hummingbot, and not only Gateway but also the client?
I would say there probably are more artifacts. I think, I would say I'll speak to Abel and some of the Coin Alpha folks. I think we've added a bunch of Gateway documentation. So I think most of the Gateway artifacts are there. And there actually might be some other artifacts from our other Notion pages in the past that we haven't brought online yet. But overall, I would say a lot of documentation, there's probably a lot of stuff which is undocumented, frankly. So I think that one thing we can do is, let's say if there's an area of the code base that you or other community members feel is just not very well documented at all, we can probably, create basically ask the Coin Alpha CTO Martin or some of the other developers who are from Coin Alpha who've worked on it for a long time to kind of chime in and add more documentation around aspects of the code which are not well documented today.
And one last thing, if I want to know about someone doing refactorings on some central piece of the code, where would be the best place to look for this information?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think we should actually do a better job of publishing a roadmap of what changes are upcoming. So there are certain changes that both the Foundation and Coin Alpha have discussed. We've actually created an architecture improvements doc that's still internal right now of like just some of the things that we think might be a good idea. So I think we should actually try to bring that online and publish some of the things that we think would benefit overall the code base. For example, one of the things we discussed is adding an RPC layer in Hummingbot, and which will allow kind of developers to control it more easily and to potentially even build an interface around Hummingbot or to run Hummingbot in headless mode, not using the current UI. That's a pretty big change, and I think that's actually one of the reasons why Coin Alpha submitted the Pydantic config management pull request that was recently merged in. So I would say that's something that I think the Foundation is still considering, but that's an example of, I think, a change that would really benefit a lot of folks in the code base. But it is a big change. So it's something that I think, to be honest, I think both we and Coin Alpha need a better job of involving the community in those efforts instead of just having that be something that, an idea that we have that we're working on. So this is something that I would say getting the architectural improvements doc visible to the community, either on the forum or in the docs, is something that we should try to prioritize.
Yes, I would love that. And thank you so much for understanding this.
No problem. I think we have one more subject to cover, which is the upcoming Hummingbot Developer Bootcamp, or Botcamp, as we're calling it. Fede, our engineering lead, give an overview of that. So let me pass the mic over to him.
Hi, everyone. This initiative is currently, we have a votation in Snapshot. We have only 2 days left, but we have the majority right now. So the idea is that we are going to teach at the first time 3 modules. The first module will be how to code scripts. When I'm talking about scripts, it's the new scripts and not the pure market making scripts. The second module will be high frequency trading fundamentals. That Mike is going to teach how to run market making strategies, how to hedge your position, and how to be like a professional market maker. And the third module will be how to use the scripts with the gateway. So this is like the first proposal for this year. Hopefully the next year we'll have much more courses. We have like an inspiration of the Near blockchain is doing something similar. They have like a university, and they have a lot of courses like analyst, instructor, developer. They have a lot of topics that the people could learn. And the idea will be like every course will have like a pre-work that Michelle is doing a great job with that, where you will find all the information that you have to understand and learn before we have the bootcamp. And the bootcamp will be just 2 or 3 hours, depends on the module. And the idea is for the first one, understand the most common components that you will be using when you are writing a script. And also, once you learn all these components, I will explain how to create a utility strategy. In this case, we are going to code a VWAP. A VWAP is used by, I don't know, a hedge fund that wants to buy a large amount of tokens. And if they use a market order, or maybe they will buy all the order book, and the price will be not good for that amount of tokens that they want to buy. So this strategy buys a little bit every quantity of seconds that you define in the strategy, and also uses the order book. So in this example, we are going to learn how to access the order book, how to query the order book, how to perform calculations, and adjust the budget to the account. This is a good example to learn the majority of all the components that you could use in a script. So once we finish that first class, that will be the only class that we are going to have, there will be like some strategies that Carlito will share the link today. There is a form that anyone could submit a strategy with a description, and which will be the requirements to have this strategy like approved for us. We are going to select the top 10 strategies from that list, and that will be like the assignments that you have to do once to get certified in the bootcamp. You have to only do one strategy of all the list and submit a pull request. We are going to review that. You have like 2 weeks to submit your script, and once we review that, the top solutions will receive some much more HBOTs than the other ones that make a normal submission. But everyone that makes a submission that we consider that is appropriate for the solution will be rewarded with these HBOTs. So in the proposal, there is an estimation of how many HBOTs we are going to give with this initiative, and everything that you want to ask, I'm here to answer all the questions. Another thing that I don't tell you is that we are working we are trying to create some kind of certification for this bootcamp or of all the modules. So once you finish and accomplish the assignment, you will receive an NFT that will say that you are a script certified developer of the bootcamp. So maybe in the future, I don't know, this may maybe a long-term activity, we could create some cool stuff with the certifications, like some marketplaces where hedge funds and Hummingbot developers could join and, I don't know, build something. Will be much more easy to understand which is which developer is able to code a quant strategy. Because, I don't know, if you're running a hedge fund and you want to hire a developer for creating market making strategies, I think that it will be much more easy to hire one that already knows how to code a high frequency trading strategy or is familiar with some cool framework like Hummingbot to do it. So that's one of the initiatives that we have also. Obviously, Abel told today, this is like an open source project, and obviously all the ideas that you have will be considered. And if you have any suggestions in the process, in the Botcamp, the content, and anything that you want to contribute, we are happy to hear it and also to work on it.
Basically, the overall curriculum Fede already described pretty much in detail, and our goal is to have a great ecosystem of developers that can help different partners that one another to enhance our current Hummingbot code base. The pre-work is optional, so if you have already been diving into the Hummingbot code base, then that is totally optional. But if it's for people who are very new to Hummingbot, that will be some of the ways that they can get onboarded easily. So yeah. Are there any questions specifically for the Hummingbot Botcamp? We will basically launch the first flagship course, the Scripts Developer 1 course first, and then the question about the sign up. We are currently creating a website for users to sign up to the Botcamp, and it will be done within this week, and we can send it over for people to enroll. And the Botcamp will be a live session, so it will be a cohort-based learning where people will also benefit from the community and of students within that cohort, and you can also reach out for help from other students and also help from us as well. And we will be announcing the start date very soon too.
Yeah, and also regarding to the certification, we plan to use POAP to do it. So you were correct with that.
Yeah, and one final thing about the Botcamp, we also are looking for experienced Hummingbot developers who want to act as reviewers for the submissions that some of the students submit. So I'm sure some of the folks from Coin Alpha, might be interested, as well as some of the other experienced developers in the community. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to Fede or Michelle. Thank you very much. I think this is a good first test of the audio only system. If you have any feedback about a format of this call, audio versus video, etc., please ask Foundation staff, Carlito, Jeremy, or David know, and we'll get that feedback incorporated into future calls. This call has been recorded. Actually, I should mention that we did record this call. We'll post the audio recording on our YouTube in the next few days so that folks who were not in the right time zone could also understand and pick up what's going on. Thanks, everyone, and we will see you next month.